Are you a chiropractor with a struggling practice, having a hard time finding and keeping patients? Is your staff falling short of expectations? I'm Dr. Scott Sawyer, and DC Trainings has the answers that you need. So tune in now and find out how. Hello, and welcome to DC Trainings. Sorry about my late start today, but I am ready to rock and roll with you. I hope you are too. We've got a big topic today. I'm Dr. Scott Sawyer, and today we are continuing to move through our Module 1 series, and we're actually in week 7, which I'll show you. But again, my apologies for the late start. I was just getting up and running here, but we are ready to go now. And I just want to say I really appreciate you taking the time on Thursdays. I see a lot of CAs on our call today, which our topic is job duties, and I think it's appropriate that from a team perspective, that everybody's really clear on what it is that they're responsible for. Let me drop this down a little bit. That was part of my technical challenge this morning, was getting the camera set up. Okay. But everybody has to be really clear on what their duties are, what their responsibilities are. And I want to point out something that we've talked about as sort of a thread through this whole module, and that is accountability. We actually finished Module 6 with a similar topic as well. Excuse me. So with accountability, the summation of job duties is that the person who has those job duties or has been assigned those job duties is accountable for a measurable result relating to those job duties. And I'm going to go through some details around job duties today, but I don't want to lose sight of the big picture on this, which is whatever those job duties are and the specifics behind them, the ultimate objective is for us to accomplish our goal. And our goal in a chiropractic practice is to help as many people as we can through chiropractic care for themselves, our patients, and their families who are also going to become patients, right? We want everybody to be receiving chiropractic care from birth throughout their lifetime to ensure a healthy nervous system, to ensure a healthy spine, and then from there, ensure a productive, happy, fulfilling life with big contributions to humanity, which we can never accomplish that when we're not healthy. So that's our ultimate objective in everything that we're doing. So how do we measure that? That's the basis of job duties. And as I show you these job duties today, I want you to see the fact that each one of them has a measurable result. And that's really the basis for, as I said, for accountability, right? I can show you today all these lists of job duties, and they can look fairly daunting, right? But what it really comes down to is how many people are we helping? How well are we accomplishing our objectives? And how are we making a difference in the world through chiropractic care? So let's jump in and go through this. I'll show you how this works. And then you can take these pieces and you can plug them right into your practice and see results and see more patients served and see better profitability, all of the things that come with a successful practice. So let me just jump over here. And I want to say hello to one CA who I haven't seen for a little while, but hello, Marina. It's great to see you on the call and welcome. I'm glad you've joined us today. As for everybody on the call, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to raise your hand. Just let me know. I'm happy to open up my line and to let me just move a couple things around here. There we go. To open up my line and really, answer any questions you have, because I want to make sure that you get the most out of each one of these trainings. So here we are, job duties, and I want to just point out we are already in week 7 out of 8 weeks. So in this series, we're sort of coming in for a landing, and it's getting close to the point where we're going to be starting a new module, which watch for that in the mail. We're going to be mailing out your materials for Module 2, which is the new patient module, and that'll be starting next month. So watch for those coming in the mail. And we only have 2 weeks left, and then we'll be starting that. So anyways, just wanted to point that out, and let's dive in. So with job duties, it's specifically, it's important, as it says on the screen, to have a practice with a fully trained team, right? What does fully trained mean? Fully trained means that everybody knows what they're accountable for, what they're responsible for, and they know how to do that which they are responsible for, right? As just about everybody on the call has gone through, there's times when we have new CAs that we're bringing on board and we're hiring and we're training. And the objective is to get to that goal of being fully trained as quickly as possible so that we can have that productive team that we're striving for, right? So I'll just repeat what it says on the screen. You can see it for yourself too, but a practice with a fully trained team operates as a successful, viable company with long-term stability. And the basis behind that, to get to that fully trained team, is to have an ongoing training system. And then also that word operates. We want to be operating or functioning with accountability. That's the objective, right? So that gives us the long-term stability that we're striving for, to have a practice that runs basically on autopilot and everybody knows exactly what they're responsible for and what they're supposed to do and how to do it. And our patients get the best service that way. So I want to just kind of set the stage here, but something that you might incorporate if you haven't already is to do an annual talent review. And it's important to do this because talents change, right? I know that my CA, who's been with me for now almost 15 years, Brenda, many of you have met her at the seminars, she has changed her role several times over 15 years, right? When we hired her, she had a certain role. She grew into that role. She mastered that role. And then over time, we realized, okay, maybe she would, because of her talents, she would be better over here. And that role has changed several times because of her just, phases in her life, things that she's learned, things that she finds that she enjoys more. So we obviously want to focus in those areas. And an example of that, a great example to share with you, is she is excellent at report of findings. She delivers reports of findings with a conversion rate well above our threshold of 80%. It's actually closer to 90 or 92% on an ongoing basis. So that's an example of why we would want to do an annual talent review. We want to see where are our individual CAs and team members' strengths and how are they changing or adapting or being modified as it relates to the dynamics of the practice. And then the second sentence, then determine their best position for practice growth. So if you're doing this on an annual basis, you'll find that these things change over time, and you might move somebody into a new position based on their developed talents or that talent review, right? So just keep that in mind. I think that's important to do an annual talent review. One thing I'll just add to that's really fun to do is to compare that to the job duties, right? So you have that person's talents and then pull up the job duties that we've given you through DC trainings once a year and go through that list and check off the ones that are really important, maybe change the ones that need to be changed, cross off the ones that aren't important, change that and make it a dynamic moving target that evolves over time. So just another, another tip that you can use to maximize that tool. All right, so then I want to go through some specific job duties, some specific excuse me, I got a tickle in my throat. Hold on just a moment. That snuck up on me. Okay, we want to go through some specific positions in the office or some specific job duties, one of which is your reception CA, right? That's from basically the captain's chair, which, as it says on the screen, from the captain's chair, the CA at the front desk keeps patient flow smooth and leads each patient to care plan completion, right? So this is your front desk CA that keeps everyone on track, keeps your patients motivated. They're also the first person that your patients see when they walk in. So this is a real people person, great smile, super friendly, but also firm. Because if I'm that CA, my role is to get you as a patient from point A to point B without failure, without interruption, without dropping the ball, right? That's my role, right? To lead each patient to care plan completion. So that's that first position, the captain's chair. And we have a sample of that for you on the website. And these are all on the website for this week. You can download these, you can print them out, you can change them, you can modify them. But these are on the website for you. Now, I want to just going back to what I mentioned at first, which is the measurable and accountability. Here it says at the top, general purpose, maintain all active care plans to obtain the best results and lifetime care, right? That's the general purpose of that position. The focus or the measurable result is patient visits. So what is that CA responsible for? PV. That's it. That's measurable. You can put a number on it. You can measure it. You know if the target's hit, you know if the target's missed. So that's an important focus in that position. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is reception B. Now, in this, as I go through this, just know if you're an office where you have one CA or two CAs, there's going to be some overlap, right? You're not going to just give the entire job duties. Oh, I'm sorry, not entire, but you're not going to split up 3 or 4 job duties to 3 or 4 different people. So that one person is going to need to take each of these and incorporate those into their own job duties, right? So that means that we can assign these things. Now, don't let it get overwhelming. There's a lot of items on the list, but that doesn't mean that one person can't really oversee and own those different roles. Okay. And I'll give you more examples as I go through this, but I just wanted to point that out because it doesn't mean you have to have a different person for every one of these roles. So on the reception B, right? So actually, I'm sorry, I'm bouncing around a little bit. I apologize because let me actually back up again, because for an office that's larger, you will have a reception A and a reception B, and you might call this the check-in CA or the check-out CA, the reception A or reception B or reception, first CA at the front, backup CA next to that person. So for reception B, as it says on the screens, the general purpose is to back up reception A, assist the doctor, and supervise private rooms. Now, when we say supervise private rooms, as you dig in a little deeper into this, what does that mean? This CA is going to be responsible for going in and doing progress exams, progress x-rays, consultations in a private room, talking to patients about missed appointments, reviewing private room questions, stimulating referrals, or initiating referrals. This CA is going to be doing that. Why? Because, and let me just kind of frame this on the big screen here, because what that means is that the CAA, reception A, is going to be checking in patients when they come in. They're going to come in, they're going to see that CA, and that CA is going to be dealing with rescheduling missed appointments and anything that's quick. That probably also is the person who's going to be answering the phone, right? So that's reception A. Reception B is any patients that need a longer interaction. They have a question, they have to change their multiple appointments, patients that are walking out that have an ouch form or a call form or a follow-up question from the doctor. Those are going to be reception B. So there's this nice flow, and you may have noticed this in some of the bigger supermarkets that we all go to, where there's actually entrance doors and exit doors, right? They realize real quickly when grocery stores are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, we can't just have everybody piling in and out of one door, right? It just creates a bottleneck. So that's the objective here, is to prevent bottlenecks where there's a lot of patients coming in and out. So just know that that's the basis behind this, and it will definitely improve your flow into and out of the practice when you organize it in this way. Okay, so for reception B, there's a different focus, right? These are different measurable areas, and we need to track those carefully. So for reception B, we have here the measurable accountability is report of findings and care plan renewals, right? So this CA is going to be closely tracking conversion rates, report of findings coming in. Did we finalize getting the file created? Did we set everything up the way that it was supposed to be? Were there appointments all scheduled out? All of those longer time frame interactions, those are going to fall into the category of reception B. Okay? And they're all detailed in here on the general duties when you take a look at this document. So that's going to be their focus, right? Their focus or their measurable success rates are going to be around report of findings, care plan renewals, and that's it, right? So that's reception B. You see the dynamic there? There's those two positions, reception A, reception B, could be the same person. And if it is the same person, just know that you'll be wearing one hat some of the time and you'll be wearing another hat some of the other times, right? So you just kind of shift that around and understand what role you're operating in at that moment, because otherwise it can create confusion. And if you're not clear on which hat you're wearing at that moment, to continue the analogy, it can be a little overwhelming at times. So you want to be real clear. I'm operating in this role right now. I'm operating in this role now, as opposed to the former role. Okay. Okay. So let's keep going. That's reception B. Now, the next one is for new patients, because we just focused a whole section on just that front desk, right? That's front desk. We're operating patient flow. We're watching that. New patients is different. New patients, this CA's primary purpose is to manage the marketing calendar. Now, the marketing calendar can be done during non-patient times, or we call those production times. So that's when the marketing calendar is going to get managed. You're not going to try to manage your marketing calendar when there's patients standing in front of you or a doctor standing there waiting for you to help with something regarding patient care. The new patient role is to provide initial chiropractic education for all new patients. So when you're wearing that hat, that's your role, right? And it's clear. You know exactly what it is that you're supposed to be working on and managing. And how is that measured? Well, we're going to see that here. How is that measured? The reporting is to provide new patient results. Okay, so that's that focus that we talked about. The focus is going to be new patients in this one. We know what the goals are. We know what the marketing's producing, and it's measured through the actual number of new patients that came into the practice compared to what our goals are. Okay, so those duties are there. They're listed out for you, and they're in a lot of detail. So once again, make sure that you're reviewing these, crossing off the ones that don't apply to you, circling the ones that do apply to you, putting an asterisk next to the ones that you need to implement because they're not there yet. So really make this a dynamic document that's being implemented on a continual basis, so that you can always make sure you've got this spoke on the wheel balanced with everything else. Okay, so that's new patients. Now, let me just read their general purpose, right? Because it's different. General purpose for the new patients is to provide subluxation education for lifetime care with at least 80% of new patients enrolled into active care plans. So this new patient role, as you'll see on the website, includes the intake, right? The consultation, the history, the initial exam, and the conversion rates. So it's basically your whole onboarding process for your new patients from the moment they contact you or you contact them until they're actually setting up their care plan, signing on to lifetime care, and they're into their ongoing visits, right? So that whole segue is where this responsibility falls. So that's for new patients. All right, so next one is the primary CA, or as we call it in DC trainings, the PCA. Another description for this would be your office manager. But this role, again, is a different hat, right? So we have to, CAs, and I appreciate Marina being on the call today, because you wear these different hats at different times, and the other CAs too. So this one, as the PCA, you have to know when you're wearing the PCA hat, right? As it says on the screen, this this role is to manage staff focuses and success rates for the entire practice. So what does that mean? Let's back up for a moment. Take a wider view on this for a moment. What that means is that you are basically an office manager some of the time, right? And in that instance, that means you have to be looking carefully at the success rates and the focuses of your teammates. And you have to be willing and able, both, to meet with them and confront any issues or talk about any issues, take those issues head on and solve them. And also you have to be able to compliment and encourage and celebrate when those focuses and success rates are met. So your role is very dynamic when you're wearing that hat, right? You want to make sure that you take the time to compliment everyone on the team who's doing really well. Compliment the doctor, compliment your CAs, your teammates. Hey, great job on those reported findings last week. That was that one day when we had all those reported findings. You nailed it. That was awesome. And our success rate was 100%, with whatever, 5 reports of findings. Fantastic. Good job. That was really great. As opposed to also, when it says manage staff focuses, you might meet with somebody whose success rates are falling short. For example, meeting with another CA and saying, hey, I noticed our new patient success rate is at 80% for the year so far. And, obviously we want to get it past 100%. So let's set up a meeting. I want to meet with you and I want to talk about the strategy that we're using. And I want to get your feedback in terms of where you see us going with what our current strategy is, so that if we need to make any changes, we can, and we can make them now. And that way we'll still hit our goal when, at the end of the quarter or at the end of the year or whenever that is. I want to meet with you and make sure that we hit our goal so we can go over our strategy. So now, just for fun, I want to change this a little bit, because I know some of you are thinking, well, wait a minute, I've only got one CA. So what am I going to do? Meet with myself and get upset at myself? And that's not exactly what I'm saying. But what I am saying is, even in a one doctor, one CA office, or if it is you, the CA, who's wearing all these different hats, there's going to need to be some time for self-reflection, right? There's times when you want to really look carefully, okay, what is my game plan here? And how well is it producing the goals for the office? How well is it producing the success rates that we need? How well is my game plan affecting or what are the results of my game plan towards the office goals, right? So if you are just one person in charge of these areas, make sure you have time to self-reflect on that and look at that strategy. There's a famous quote, and I want to, I'll just say, because Dr. Knich, welcome, Dr. John. It's great to have you on the call. You've heard me say this before, but there's 3 kinds of people in the world, right? There's the person who makes things happen. That's number 1. Another type of person is someone who watches things happen. So just sort of sits on the sideline and says, hey, I'm going to let my team do what they're doing. And, oh, wow, we won. I'll jump in and take some of the credit. That's number 2. They watch things happen. And number 3 is they wonder, what happened? How did it turn out like that? And in that case, it could be, unfortunately, that when you say, how did it turn out like that? Excuse me, that the reaction is more of a, oh, how did it turn out so bad, right? So, and we don't want to end up in that. You have to ask yourself, what kind of person are you? Are you the person that makes things happen, watches things happen, or wonders what happened? And in the role of everyone in the office, we want to obviously be in that first category, right? We want to be in the category where we're making things happen, but no one is it more important to have that first category with than your PCA, right? The PCA has to be someone who makes things happen, who takes on those challenges, who addresses those concerns, who supports success and achievement. That's the role of the PCA. So make sure that you have someone in your office who that's assigned to. And again, it could be the same person. That's fine. And at certain times, that person has to be willing to address that. I didn't want to say confront that, because that sounds a little too negative, but just address that, right? Because it can be very complimentary, or it can be more of a constructive critiquing. So that's the PCA. And the general job duties are there. Now, the focus on the PCA I put in here is the report of findings and care plan renewals. Now, you'll say, wait a minute, that was the responsibilities of reception B, and you can't have somebody who's responsible for the same focuses. However, reception B runs that position as a backup to reception A. The PCA role is overseeing the success rates of the whole practice. So that's just one example, because it says, as a continuation of that sentence, conversion rates plus overall success rates from other CAs. So we're really, in this position, we're really striving, as it says up on top, I'm going to underline this, to maintain desired practice levels, i.e. new patients, patient visits, conversion rates, and revenue. And I'll add one, staff training, right? So, or team development. So that's the other part of that. So we want to make sure that that role is really clear. That's the PCA. Let's keep going. We want to talk about team accountability. And I know I started with this, but I'm just going to give you an example here of the importance of a measurable result and some examples of who might be responsible for these. Okay. So the first one is new patients. And I went through all 5 of our focuses, our DC trainings focuses, just to delineate this. But the first one is new patients, right? A CA should be assigned to new patients. The second one is conversion rates. And those conversion rates are related to 2 parts. One is report of findings conversion rates. The other is your care plan renewal or CPR conversion rates. Both have to be measured. And there's the old adage of the leaky bucket, right, in chiropractic, where you've got your new patients, that's the water flowing into the bucket. And then your bucket has these holes in it that where the water's leaking out. That's your attrition or the patients that are leaving the practice. The idea around maintaining consistent practice volume is to keep that water in the bucket. So the 2 ways to do that are to increase the stream of new patients or increase the water into the bucket. The other way is to plug the holes in the leaky bucket or to stop attrition of patients leaving the practice. And it's a combination of both. But that's where the conversion rates come in. We want to know that for the new patients coming into the practice, how many of those are converting into lifetime care patients with ongoing care plans. And that should be measured by the PCA. Excuse me. Number 3 is patient visits. So patient visits is just your general volume of patients coming in on a day in and day out basis. That kind of says what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry. That explains what that means in of itself, right? I want to get to number 4. That's what made me pause. So number 4, that's patient visit average, and PVA is measured to show how long a patient stays with you, right? PVA is if a patient starts care and they have a conversion rate that's good, right? They set up a care plan. It's lifetime care, 1 year at a time. They set up their care plan for a year. They have all their visits scheduled out. Then how long do they stay for? And that's an important component because if we know that, then number 5 comes into play. We can actually forecast or project what our revenue will be based on our new patients coming into the practice and our conversion rates, which leads to the patient visits and how long they're going to stay, and that leads to optimum revenue. So we want to be following these numbers, and once you are tied in with these numbers and you know what they mean, it really makes it easy to assess where the subluxations in your practice are, right? You can see where the hiccups are or where the, as I said, subluxations are that are preventing you from reaching your goals, and you can quickly fix those and get those back on track. So those are the 5 areas of team accountability. I've shown a practice here with a PDC, that's the practice owner, that's the primary doctor of chiropractic, an associate doctor, another associate doctor, and then 3 CAs, right? So that's sort of the overall DC trainings model is 2 doctors, 3 CAs, a 5-person team seeing about 500 visits a week, collecting about $1 million a year. Now that's just a rough framework. You could be much higher, you could be much lower, you could be much different. That's okay, but that's the general framework that we use as a model. Okay, so let's talk about more with regards to job duties. Paid vacation, right? We want to make sure that our team works hard and that they have time off, time to get away, time to relax, time to recharge. So how much paid vacation on an annual basis do you provide for your employees? Well, for the PDC, it's sort of a question. I mean, I'm the PDC in my practice. I work all the time, and yet I also take time off. So it's sort of a open-ended, how much time can you take off, or how much time do you want to take off? So I'm not going to put a number in there for that one. The idea is when you're not in your practice, let me go back, your practice should continue running. So if you do take a vacation, PDCs, make sure that your patients don't suffer and go subluxated while you're gone. And there's a doctor on our call right now that we just had a conversation about this, and he ran into a little bit of a speed bump because when he was gone, his patients weren't well served. And so there was some grumbling that went on. We don't want our patients to go subluxated and have to suffer just because we're on the beach in Hawaii enjoying ourselves. So that's where these systems are so important. The next one is the associate doctor. Now, this could be one of two ways, and I want to spend a minute on this just to give you those two scenarios. If you're not in those scenarios yet, that's fine. We can work towards that, work through that to get you to that level in DC trainings. So with your associate that is an employee DC, that's number one, you want to make sure they know how much time off they have, right? Maybe it's 3 weeks a year, maybe it's 4 weeks a year, maybe it's 2 weeks a year, whatever it is, that's going to be part of your employment contract with regards to how much time they get off per year as an employee DC. Number two is for an associate DC. And on an associate DC, that means that they likely have, I'm going to open up my screen, they likely have their own patients, right? So they're seeing their own patients. They are in exchange for working with you in your office and seeing their own patients, they're utilizing the staff, your team is helping them, and they're going to be paying rent. Well, to offset the amount of rent that they pay, maybe you do an exchange where you say, I'll lower your rent or your overhead. Maybe they're paying a percentage of their collections to the practice, or they're paying just a flat rent. Either way, I'll lower your rent in exchange for you providing relief coverage for X number of days per year or X number of weeks per year. Maybe it's 2 weeks a year or 10 days a year that they're going to provide relief work for you as the PDC in exchange for a lowered rent. So it's a very great win-win situation to set that up. And we covered that a little more in detail on another call, but I thought I would just recap that because that's an important part to lay out in terms of job duties. Here's what your job duties are. And in addition to job duties, here's how much time you're going to have for vacation so you can recharge and be fresh on the job. So that would be for an associate DC, that's relief coverage for X number of weeks per year or days per year. An employee DC, maybe they get 2 or 3 weeks off per year, and that's a vacation time for them. That's fine. For PCAs and CAs, maybe they get two weeks off a year. Maybe they get 3 weeks after 5 years. So there can be some incentives for longevity in terms of how much time off a CA or an associate is getting by staying with you for the long term. I want to talk about poor performance. And this is important because we have to, as I said earlier, I used this phrase and I want to repeat it. You have to address these concerns head on. You can't procrastinate. It will undermine the morale of the entire office if you don't take these issues on immediately and without hesitation. So that's really important. Before we get into the specifics of that, I just want to say it's also important that you don't focus on the negative. I mean, yeah, you don't focus on the negative. Sorry, I said it backwards, but you focus on positive. So let me just give you a hint on this. I think it's really valuable as a team leader, as a practice owner, as a boss, if you will, or whatever, to compliment everyone in your office at least once a day. Find something to compliment them on, something they did well, something they said right. Here's what I caught you doing right today. A way they interacted with a patient, something they did should receive a compliment on a daily basis. So that's a way to avoid focusing on negatives. But when the time comes up and there is what's called corrective coaching required, meaning I need to coach you on something that is going to correct some of your actions, we need to make sure that we address that head on as well. And I have more notes on that in your binder in terms of how to do that. If it progresses to where you've done the corrective coaching and you've addressed the issues multiple times, then obviously it's going to be time for that person to go. And I encourage you to do an exit interview, which we have the exit interview online for you to access with the website. So that's in there, and you can pull those notes as needed. But I just wanted to emphasize, don't delay when this comes up, because it will undermine the morale of your practice. All right. And that wraps up our topic today. Next week, we'll get into the performance evaluation. Before we go there, though, I want to just jump over to the website. And I'm just going to go through these documents quickly. They're all listed right here. And for each of them, and this is a big week with multiple materials, for each of them, we have both a document that you can just print out and use. And then we also have a sample, so you can see sort of a general way of how it's filled out and how it's utilized. So on that, I'll just go through and show you some of these. So we have the job duties for the PCA, and you can see it's a full page and it shows their accountability. So that's the PCA. Then we have reception A, again, a full page. You can take what you want, you can cross off what you don't want, but use this as a framework to build the level of detail that you need in your practice. And so that's reception A. And then we have reception B, which is different. It's a different role. It's a different hat. There's different specifics on there. So that's for reception B. We then shift over to new patients. And again, these are all listed right here on the website. But we shift over to new patients, and there's specific marketing campaigns in there that you can use. So I do want to say, because I hear this from doctors on a regular basis, if you're coming up short on your new patients, go back to the job duties new patients document. And you can look on the website for marketing materials, but in this one single document, and let me go back to share my screen, you'll see that all of the marketing campaigns are actually listed on here as responsibilities. And each one of those is a standalone document that is on the website that you can pull out. They're in module 6, but each one of these is in there for you. And if you want to get more new patients, or if you're coming up short on your new patients, please don't hesitate to pull up those documents and review those materials so you can get your new patient marketing where you want it to be and hit your goals. So that's for new patients. There's also a request for time off, and this is quite a valuable document. This really, and there's a sample, actually, I'll show you the sample too, but this is something that's very important. And I shared with you, I hired a new CA recently, and she came to me and said, hey, I need to take some time off. And it was very simple for me to just say, that's great. Go ahead and review the materials in your employment binder. There's a material called request for time off, and you'll need to fill that out and submit that for the time off. Well, it turned out that her plan was to take some time off the following week. And in this material right here, it says vacation time must be made 8 weeks in advance. Excuse me. And so, unfortunately, if she had taken the time off as planned originally, sorry, then it would have really put the practice in a bind. I mean, we would have been short-staffed, patients would have been affected, patient care would have been affected. So she was fortunately able to push it out a little bit, but it was just a really straightforward way to be able to say, hey, we all subscribe to a certain code of conduct, if you will, throughout the practice. Here's a document that you need to read, and then that way you can plan your vacation accordingly. So that was in there for her, and it worked out well. The next one is the written warning. So obviously, if it does come to corrective coaching, we want to make sure that we have a set of steps and policies to follow in order to have this documented properly. Very important, right? So there's a written warning and a written warning sample. And if it does come to this point where a person needs to leave the team, there's a notice of termination, and that's on there along with an exit interview. Now, I don't want you to combine those two into an entirely negative situation, because if somebody does need to be let go from the team, so be it. I would recommend highly doing an exit interview. But even if somebody's not leaving in that negative context, if they're leaving because they're moving out of the area, or they just are moving to a different job or something, and it's actually not such a bad circumstance, I still recommend doing an exit interview, because it first of all makes sure that the policies are followed, and you got your keys back and all of those things. But also, it just is a great way to check in with them, to make sure that there's a final handshake and some eye contact and a smile and I wish you all the best. We're parting ways. Take care. So I still have lots of former CAs that come in and get adjusted all the time, and I still provide chiropractic care for them and their families. So I think the exit interview is an important step to maintain a good relationship, and to do it in that way. Okay, so with that, that wraps that up with our materials and the PowerPoint. I'm testing a new background today. We were having some issues. That's why I got the late start, but But I want to just check in and say hello. And actually, I would love to say hello to Dr. Davis's office. So, Marina, I'm going to open up your line. Are you available? Hello, Marina and Dr. Davis.
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Hi.
It's great to hear your voice.
Well, thank you.
Are there any questions I can answer?
No, we're actually all here. It's Dr. Davis, myself, Bree, our receptionist, Noemi, and Isabel. So it's all the team right now on call.
Great. Great.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm so glad to see you or to hear you all are on the call. Did I say that right? So nice to
Yeah.
talk to you all. There we go. But yes, it's great to talk with you. And actually, it's great that you're all there because obviously we're talking about job duties and there's a lot of responsibilities that cover quite a few people. And so it's
Yeah.
important to have that delineation. So anyways, yes, it's great to have you on the call. And you said no questions at this time?
No, no questions. I think we're gonna start planning right now because we moved to a bigger location now. So we are gonna plan a patient appreciation event like in July. So we're
Great.
gonna plan that.
Excellent. Excellent. That's exciting. And I knew that you were moving into a bigger space. So definitely check out the patient appreciation marketing in module 6. There's some great suggestions and items that you'll be able to use to make it a big event. So that's great.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Let's see. How about Actually, I don't see any hand. How about this, actually, because I'm just looking at who's on the call right now. But if you have any questions, now's a great time to raise your hand because I don't want to single anybody out or to gloss over anybody. But I certainly want to make sure that we get all your questions answered. I always like to check in with Celeste when she's on the call. So welcome, Celeste. I'm going to open up your line if you don't mind, because I want to. Well, you've been a CA for a while now, and you've done quite a bit of training. So, Celeste, are you there?
Hello, yes. Good morning, Dr. Sawyer. I'm here.
Great, welcome. Good morning. With your experience, how long have you been a CA now?
I'm actually going to be having my work anniversary is March 1st for 8 years.
Yes, congratulations. That's huge. That's
Thank
perfect,
you. Thank you. Time really does fly.
especially when you're having fun and you're
Heck
healthy.
yeah.
You're well
Heck yeah.
adjusted. So with our topic today, maybe you could just give some insight into your position on the importance of having separate job duties for the different roles in the practice and how, yeah, just how important that is.
Yes, it keeps things organized. It keeps people from being confused about what they're being asked to do because I think when there's confusion, it tends to lead to mistakes or wasted work time. I think that if there's a clear, distinctive role and somebody knows I need to do A, B, and C, it's more beneficial to the whole process and the whole practice because then that person can really hone their skills in that area and also monitor with the DC how well they're doing in that role with A, B, and C.
That's so great. And by saying monitor the DC, obviously with your experience, I mean you're almost at 10 years here pretty soon. Um, I'm sure there's times where you are monitoring the DC. In other words, you're probably knowing more about what's happening in that moment and need to provide some direction for the doctor, as much as it happens the other way too.
Yeah, we try to keep an open line of communication with Dr. Knish at all times because he really needs to be aware of everything that's happening in the practice. So, um, and I meant with the DC, not monitoring him, the doctor, but monitoring our roles and what our responsibilities are with him so we can make sure, because as you say, it's measurable, and we can make sure that we're doing our 100% and we're always striving to do our best.
Yeah, that's great. That's how as a team you win. So great feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sawyer.
You're welcome. All right. Let's see. I don't see any hands up. And rather than just going through the list and picking on everybody, I think I'll wrap up here. But I think that actually this is a perfect time to wrap up because as Celeste was just saying, and as Marina said, there's providing direction for the doctor, right? And it's not that you're the boss or something. That's not what I mean by that term at all. What it means is that when we're in the heat of the game of taking care of our patients and the practice is busy and you've got new patients and patients coming in and the phones are ringing, oftentimes that the priority shifts between different people on the team. And the best example I can use is, with the basketball team, because I was the chiropractor for the Golden State Warriors. And there's times during the game when maybe one person, their role, if you will, as a guard or a center. And because of the way the game is played, suddenly the center becomes the guard or vice versa. And in our office, it may be that reception A suddenly needs to move to reception B, or the doctor is not aware that it's really backed up in the lobby. And so reception A has to tell the doctor, like, you got to move because we're backed up front. So reception A starts to give direction to the doctor just to keep that flow going. And that dynamic is a wonderful thing. It's amazing. It's how teams win championships, and it's how, as chiropractic offices, we can take our services to the next level and help more people. So understanding these roles that I've gone through today, these job duties, and their importance is really important just in of itself as a standalone. But once you start to own them and you can actually jump between them at different times or take pieces of one and implement it with another, and you can start to shift and change as the dynamics of the moment or the day or the entire practice change, that's where we win as a team. And that's why I provide these frameworks for you to be able to implement those and then take your practice to the next level and measure the steps it took to get there so that you don't end up in that third category, right? You're going to be in the first category. The first category is the people who make things happen. You're not going to be in the category of, wow, I wonder what happened. And an example of that would be, we just had a rocking day that was total chaos. Patients ended up leaving because they waited too long. We saw a bunch of patients. There was a bunch of new patients here. We got a bad review from one of them because they were upset with us. What just happened, right? As opposed to making things happen, having these roles clearly defined, as Celeste said, knowing who's going to do what and when, and really having that crystallized so that when you do have a great day, you can say, I know exactly how we did that. We did it because of A, B, and C, or we did it because of X, Y, and Z. And the good news is, because we know that, we're going to do it again tomorrow and next week. And next year, we're going to grow even bigger, right? So all of these job duties fall into that framework for growing practices to be able to expand and continue to grow and serve more people and even open a new office, as Marina said. So and by the way, I'm really proud of you, Marina, for that. That's really fantastic. But just to stay on point and wrap up, use these job duties as a way to crystallize everything that's going on in the practice. Everyone will know what they're responsible for, and you'll be in that category of the people that make things happen on a continual basis. So next week, we'll get into week 8. It's been great to be with you today. As always, if you have questions, please let me know. Just email those questions to dctrainings@gmail.com or jump on the webinar. Let me know what your questions are, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week.
If you would like to become a member of DC Trainings, be sure to head on over to dctrainings.com to get started today.